John Osborne says, given your history in the theater, I'm sure you've heard of Stephen Sondheim's recent passing. Yes, it is very sad. We've lost an amazing artist. Do they want to know? John Osborne wants to know if I have a favorite play or musical that I've worked on, or even just a favorite piece of theater in general. Um, the two things that come to my mind when I think about favorite theater, Hamilton, obviously, but perhaps less obviously, Picasso at the Lapin Agile, which is a play that Steve Martin wrote. I got to see a production of it here in San Francisco, and it was beautiful. And even more than just being beautiful as a play, because it is just wonderfully written, and it is about the intersection of art and science at the turn of the 20th century, using Picasso and Einstein uh, 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 meeting at a cafe called the Fast Rabbit, the Quick Rabbit, the Lapin Agile, uh, and having an evening long conversation. And eventually Elvis shows up. It's, yeah, it's transformative. I've had theater in general, even though I partake of a lot more movies than I do of theater. I have, over the course of my life, have had way more transformative experiences in a theater than I have had in a movie theater. Something about being in the room, nothing quite equates to that. And when you ask me my favorite show that I worked on, it's a weird one. It's George Coates' performance works, The Architecture of Catastrophic Change, which was the first theater show, professional theater show that I worked on after moving to San Francisco in the summer of 1990. Uh, George had a show over at the American Conservatory Theater at the Geary Theater, and the Loma Prieta earthquake happened on George's show. And uh, 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 it destroyed the set. He had to move out of there, and he found a new theater. Well, I mean, that was a show he was doing at ACT. And just after the Loma Prieta, George's company made the deal for a theater space at 110 McAllister in the Hastings Law School building. And they were gearing up this big show called The Architecture of Catastrophic Change. And I got work on it in, I think, yeah, September of 1990, and we launched it somewhere around that Christmas. Um, it was a beautiful show to work on. There were some amazing, amazing singers from the San Francisco Opera. Aurelio was a tenor opera singer who was just amazing and incredible. Susan Volkin and two colleagues had an Eastern European women's choir, and they did all this really beautiful dissonant singing in this Eastern European style that they had mastered. But most impressively in this show, which encompassed tons of music, obviously, since I'm talking about a lot of music, but also a lot of visuals and visual magic tricks that blurred the line between what was real and what wasn't real on the stage. Um, the lead singers of the show was a South African a cappella group called Zulu Spear, and I think there were 7 of those guys. It's between 6 and 8. um, and they were, the sound of them singing still sits with me. Um, because we listened to it. I mean, all of us that worked on that show listened to them singing just every day for like a couple of years. It felt like it might have been a year and a half, but um, for a period of a couple of months, I took over for Erin, our stage manager. She was on another gig, and so I was being the stage manager for the show. When you were the stage manager for Architecture of Catastrophic Change, the opening song happened in black. And so you'd gather Zulu Spear back behind the stage, which was like herding cats because they were all over the place. And you'd gather them together and you'd get them in a circle, and then you'd get the cue and you'd give them the cue to sing. And there's a microphone in the middle, and all 8 of these guys are surrounding you and singing this beautiful South African a cappella sound to you, which is also coming through the speakers of the house and through the building and up through the floor. And I'm got goose pimples just talking about it because it became like just this magical thing that everyone on the crew sort of partook of at some point. Like, oh, I got to be there for that because it's a totally amazing experience. And I think everyone who works in theater, who has worked in theater, will tell you that the best show is always backstage, that watching the crew move and do stuff. I worked on Beach Blanket Babylon, a San Francisco institution, for I think over 30 years. I worked for them around their 20th year. And I mean, that was a show in which it was a 70-minute show with, I think, 8 cast members or 10 cast members. And as a backstage tech, every single backstage position had 200 plus cues in 70 minutes. Costume changes, doors opening and closing, set changes. It was a workout just to work on that show. Oh my God, so much fun. I want to talk about one more transformative experience in theater, which was, there used to be this wonderful Christmas drag show called, here in San Francisco, called Christmas with the Crawfords. And in it, this wonderful actor whose first name is Steven, and I wish I could remember his last name, but my brain is too old, because he's also a member of Three for All, an improv trio that my wife and I have seen multiple times over the last 15 years. Stephen played this teenager who's locked in a room with a girl teenager, and every time the door closes, the boy and the girl, because they're teenagers, are all like hormonal, and there's like drums, and the actors are kind of vibrating towards each other. And that's part of the drama of the show, is that the teenagers are in a room and teenagers do what teenagers are going to do. And later on in the show, a baby comes out, and the baby is Steven, the actor, but in painter's stilts, wearing this padded baby uniform, but he's like 9 feet tall. And that's hilarious, first of all. But funny wasn't the first emotion that passed over me when this 9 foot tall baby walked out on stage. Terror was my first response, because I was in the room with this thing and it didn't feel like it should be possible. And for just like 1/2 of a second, my brain went into full amygdala driven fight or flight mode. That's something that can only happen in theater. That's just, I'm never going to have that physical response in a movie theater. I never have, and I doubt that I will. But in theater, I've had it more than a few times. Thank you for that great question. I love talking about my time working in theater. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.